3,500,000 bank accounts, open without permission, without knowledge, without consent. 5,300 employees fired, almost none of the management. $3 billion in settlements, 0 criminal convictions. The woman who designed the system that produced all of it retired 4 months before the government announced the fine. She left with $124,600,000 and a non-disparagement agreement. The branch teller in St. Helena, California, who reported the fraud in 2008, left with an $18,000 legal bill and a termination on her record. This is not a scandal. This is how a machine was built to produce fraud. Wells Fargo is at the peak of this story. The most valuable bank in the world by market capitalization. The most valuable. Investors believe the bank has cracked something that every other retail bank is still searching for. A model where customers genuinely want more products from the same institution. The metric that proves this, the number that appears on every earnings call, in every analyst report, in every investor presentation, is the cross-sell ratio. The average number of financial products each Wells Fargo customer holds. The CEO calls it the most important number in the bank. The slogan is simple. 8 is great. 8 products per customer. Checking account, savings account, credit card, auto loan, mortgage, line of credit, investment account, insurance policy. Carrie Tolstedt runs a division responsible for every branch, every teller, every personal banker in America. She holds this position from 1998 to 2016, 18 years. She reports directly to the CEO. She is described in internal documents as the architect of the cross-sell strategy. John Stumpf is the CEO. His 2015 compensation is $19,300,000. He cites the cross-sell ratio on 12 consecutive earnings calls as proof of organic customer loyalty and the bank's fundamental health. Both of them know, by 2005 at the latest, that the number is not what the investor presentation says it is. To understand how this works, walk through a single day in a Wells Fargo branch, not a flagship branch in Manhattan. A branch in St. Helena, California. Population, 6,000. 1 Main Street. 1 Wells Fargo. Tuesday morning. The branch opens at 9 a.m. By 9:30 a.m., the branch manager has already received the first call from the district manager. The question is not, how are things going? The question is, what do your numbers look like? Each personal banker at a large city branch carries a daily solutions target of up to 15 new financial products. In a small town, walk-in traffic on an average Tuesday does not generate 15 genuine opportunities. It does not generate 10. Some days it does not generate 5. The customers who walk in are cashing checks, asking about a charge, updating an address. They are not looking to open new accounts. At noon, a check-in. Everyone reports their number. If the number is low, the pressure escalates. At 3 p.m., another check-in. At 5 p.m., a call to the district manager. Miss the number long enough, the employment ends. This is the architecture of the dream Wells Fargo sells to investors. Organic growth, customer loyalty, 8 products per household. What it does not say is that the only way to produce that number, honestly, in a branch in a small American town on an average Tuesday, is mathematically impossible. So employees find the only answer the system leaves available to them. A teller identifies a customer who recently received a direct deposit. Without asking, she opens a savings account using information already in the system. The account is funded with $0. It exists. It counts. A personal banker issues a debit card to an account the customer does not know exists. The card is mailed to the branch address, not the customer's home. Commission earned, $3 to $5 per card. An elderly customer comes in to update her mailing address. The banker processes the address change, then slides a signature form across the desk. This just confirms you were here today. The form opens a credit card account. The internal vocabulary documents the behavior in real time. Sandbagging, holding a legitimate sale from Tuesday to count it on Wednesday when the numbers are low. Pinning, assigning a product to a customer without their knowledge or request. Bundling, opening multiple linked accounts in a single interaction to inflate the count in one move. These are not the actions of criminals recruited for their dishonesty. These are the actions of single mothers with rent due, recent graduates with student loans, branch managers with their own performance reviews arriving at the end of the month. They are doing what the system requires them to do to stay employed. Across 39 states, 5,300 individual employees independently arrive at the same answer, not because they conspire, not because they are told explicitly, because a quota is designed to have exactly one solution, and the solution is fraud. Meanwhile, on earnings calls, John Stumpf cites the cross-sell ratio as proof that Wells Fargo customers are choosing the bank voluntarily. Analysts raise their price targets. The stock climbs. Carrie Tolstedt's division is celebrated as the engine of the bank's outperformance. In 2005, the Wells Fargo board begins receiving regular internal reports. The reports document ethics line complaints. They document the reasons employees are being terminated. The leading category, year after year, is sales-related violations. The board does not act. The quota does not change. It gets higher. The first thread is pulled not by a regulator, not by an auditor, by a single mother in a small California wine town who decides, in 2008, that she is not willing to do what the system requires. Yesenia Gitrin is a personal banker at the Wells Fargo branch in St. Helena, California. She sees it happening. Accounts open without consent. Cards mailed to the branch address. Customers calling in about products they never requested. She reports it to her branch manager. She is told it is a misunderstanding. She reports it again. Her supervisor tells her to go shake her skirt. She files a complaint with OSHA, the federal agency responsible for protecting employees who report fraud. OSHA opens a case. OSHA makes one phone call before issuing its determination. That call is to the bank's attorney. OSHA closes a case without interviewing Gitrin, without visiting the branch, without reviewing a single account. Gitrin files in federal court. In 2012, a federal judge reviews her case. The judge finds, in written opinion, that Gitrin's belief that fraud was occurring was direct language, objectively reasonable. The judge dismisses her case. The legal reasoning: Gitrin failed to meet her sales quotas. Wells Fargo is entitled to terminate an employee who failed to meet sales quotas. The quota that produced a fraud she reported is simultaneously the legal instrument that extinguishes her right to report it. In 2015, the appeal fails. Gitrin exits the federal court system with an $18,000 legal bill, a termination on her record, and a fraud that is, at that moment, still running at full scale. In 2010, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, Wells Fargo's primary federal regulator, receives documentation of 700 separate sales incentive gaming complaints from bank employees. OCC examiners bring this documentation directly to Carrie Tolstedt. She tells them the complaints do not represent a systemic problem. The OCC accepts this answer. The OCC's own 2017 internal review later finds that examiners failed to document resolution of any of the 700 cases. No citation issued. No escalation filed. The meeting ends. The fraud continues for 6 more years. Here is the structural problem this reveals. The OCC's operating budget is funded through fees paid by the banks it regulates. Its supervisory framework creates no binding obligation to escalate when a regulated institution's senior executive dismisses documented fraud evidence. When the most powerful person in the division says there is no problem, the examiner has no procedural pathway to compel one. The regulator's authority depends on the cooperation of the entity it regulates. In December 2013, the Los Angeles Times publishes a full investigation. Quota pressure, fraudulent account openings, employees being fired for refusing to comply. The investigation is specific. It is documented. It names the bank. Wells Fargo's internal response is a 2014 ethics workshop. The board's own independent investigation. published 3 years later, confirms the bank's data validated the LA Times story at the time of publication. The fraud continues for 2 more years. The ethics workshop is cited in internal communications as evidence of a corrective response. September 8, 2016. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau announces a $185 million fine, the largest in CFPB history. The OCC adds $35 million. The City of Los Angeles adds $50 million. 2 weeks later, John Stumpf sits before the Senate Banking Committee. Senator Elizabeth Warren places 12 earnings call transcripts on the desk in front of him. In each one, Stumpf cites the cross-sell ratio as evidence of organic customer loyalty and the bank's health. She asks him directly, how much did your personal stock holdings increase while you were publicly citing a metric manufactured by fraud? Stumpf cannot answer the question. October 2016. Stumpf resigns. Tolstedt had already left in July with her $124,600,000 package, 4 months before the settlement was announced, and 3 months before the Senate hearing at which she would have been required to answer for it. Gitrin watches the 2016 announcement on television, 8 years after her first complaint, 3 years after losing her federal lawsuit, $18,000 in debt. She says, "I told you so." She receives no portion of any settlement, no reinstatement, no back pay. She receives, eventually, a journalism award from a Napa Valley Register. Here is a complete legal record of what the Wells Fargo fraud produced. $185 million in initial combined fines, $142 million class action settlement, $480 million shareholder settlement, $575 million 50 state attorney general settlement, $3 billion DOJ and SEC deferred prosecution agreement in February 2020. Total approximate settlement liability for $1,382 million. 0 criminal convictions, 0 prison sentences. John Stumpf eventually pays $17,500,000 and accepts a lifetime ban from banking. Carrie Tolstedt eventually pays $17 million. That is 13.7 cents on every dollar she left with. The deferred prosecution agreement, the mechanism used to resolve criminal liability, runs for 3 years and expires without charges. February 2018. The Federal Reserve places an asset cap on Wells Fargo, $1,950 billion, preventing the bank from growing beyond its then current size until governance is reformed. The cap is still in effect. 2 things to know before the next investment pitch arrives. Wells Fargo did not sell customers on the cross-sell ratio. It sold investors on it. The metric existed not to measure customer satisfaction, but to justify a stock price. When a company's primary investor communication tool is a number that employees are compensated to manufacture, the number is not a measure of health. It is a design requirement. Ask what the metric is actually measuring. Ask who benefits when it goes up. If the answer is the executive, not the customer, the number is a fiction waiting to be documented. The OCC had 700 documented complaints in 2010. It had a direct conversation with the division head. It wrote nothing down. OSHA had a whistleblower case in 2009. It called the bank's attorney and closed it. A federal court had documented evidence of fraud in 2012. It used the fraud's own instrument as the legal reason to dismiss the person who reported it. The regulatory system is not designed to catch fraud before it scales. It is designed to settle it after it does. The systemic verdict on Wells Fargo is this. The cross-sell metric was a fraudulent investor communication used for 14 years, cited on dozens of earnings calls, and removed without explanation when it became legally inconvenient. The deferred prosecution agreement gave the DOJ a resolution it could announce, and an outcome it did not have to defend in a courtroom. The Federal Reserve asset cap is the only active structural consequence the bank still carries. The branch teller who opened fake accounts to keep her job has a termination on her record. The executive who built the system that required it paid 13.7 cents on the dollar and retired. 5,300 employees were fired for following the system. One executive built it. She left with $124 million.